What's up, Spider-Man Nation? This is episode number 3 of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm your host, Jonathan Weber, webmaster of SpiderManFanrave.com. There is no separation between any of those words. It is simply SpiderManFanrave.com. No hyphens, no spaces, no uppercases, all lowercase, all one word. That is my domain. That is the website that this web show is associated with. And joining me down there today is Jan. How's it going, Jan?
It's going pretty good. I had a good day.
All right, and we don't have any other panelists on here today because James is busy, socializing with other people because apparently that's something he does. I don't really understand that concept very much, so I'm doing research on it, but apparently it involves talking to people and going outside. Yeah, I guess it's like one of those things you just learn. I don't know. But James is not here, and also we do have another panelist that we are planning to roll out, hopefully in the next episode. I say roll out as if he's a car. I'm sure he would enjoy being a car, actually. I think he'd find that to be kind of cool. But yes, hopefully he will be able to join us on our next episode. He's got some stuff he's got to take care of, so waiting for him on that. And James is unfortunately socializing with other people, so yeah, freak. So Jan and I are here to. I hesitate to say fly solo because it's two of us. So instead, we're going to do a duet here with this episode of the show, I guess. So, Jan, what you been up to this week, or the last 2 weeks actually, because it's 2 weeks since our last episode? Anything happened in the interim?
Yeah, I had a insane project for my engineering class where you had to model. I don't know if you've ever taken engineering classes, but there's this thing called on Inventor, and it's this program where you like make 3D models of different. You can make 3D models of objects like cubes or whatever. And we made 3D models of an Automobiles car, and it was I basically lived at the school for 2 weeks to get it done because it was like the deadline was ridiculous. So I had to go in like at 6:40 every morning to get it done, and stay after it till like 6 every night. So, and I had robotic stuff, so pretty busy 2 weeks for me.
That's really depressing whenever you have to go into school at 6:40. And it's also, I've always wondered, maybe you can answer this question, maybe you can't. Why is it that some sports teams practice at 5:30 in the morning before school? What part of that idea is good? Because every single person that I know would hate the idea of getting up earlier to go play basketball.
Well, I think the reason is that sometimes it's just a little bit more convenient. I feel like people have more things maybe going on in the afternoon, like homework, or people like to go home to their families, for the coaches. So I feel like getting up in the morning when everyone's asleep and just doing it then, and then having the afternoon off is maybe on some level more appealing, or at least more convenient.
I mean, I do kind of understand that point, but at the same time, I like my sleep.
I was on a basketball team for a while, and it was pretty rough. So some of those morning practices, but yeah.
I played basketball for 1 year. It was when I was in 3rd grade. I was absolutely terrible. Never went back to it.
I played it for 3 years in grade school. I think it was like 6th through 8th grade. So
yep,
I was very good.
Yep, I pretend to walk in straight lines and play the trumpet instead because I don't do those. I don't do that sports thing. I make music.
Well, it was awful because everyone expects me to be really good at basketball because I'm 6'8". So like everyone was really disappointed that I sucked at I was terrible at playing because I had no coordination. So when I was like I was just not. So it was not the most enjoyable thing ever. But I mean, I'm glad I did it. It was a good life experience, I think.
Kind of like how everyone expects LeBron James to be a good player, but now he's like completely sucked this year. That's coming from someone who lives in Cleveland. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I want to come back. I want to give you guys a national championship. I don't think we're headed for a national championship anytime soon, LeBron. I think you're bullshit.
Is he? I thought he was a good player. Like, is he slacking or something?
He is a good player, but all of a sudden he's been stubbing his toe every other game, so he ends up out for 3 weeks.
Really?
And he's just like, I don't know what he's doing right now, but it's been a disappointment this season. Then of course we've had Johnny Manziel from the Browns. He was a bit of a disappointment, but in his defense, he is actually like he actually went into rehab recently to address some of those issues. So I mean, I'm
Oh,
not gonna bash him for that. I mean,
good for him.
anyone who helps themselves is a hero in my book. I do have to say that.
I agree.
And that's actually not my quote. I actually quoted that from somewhere else. But anyone who helps themselves is a hero in my book. Thank you, Chris Culver, for that quote. All right. What have I been up to in the past 2 weeks? Absolutely nothing. I've been up to school, work, and yeah, basically that's it.
Good job.
What?
What's your job?
Basically, and I say work as in somewhat as in I don't actually have a job, more so working as in working on getting into college and
Oh, I got you. Okay, yeah.
and
I don't
shut
have a job either, so
working on getting into college, working on um, audition pieces for my music major program. I have to play this concerto thing on trumpet. Concerto, basically, a pretty decent piece of music. Um, it's not too hard, but it just takes work. Like everything in life, all the good things in life take work. Anything worth fighting for takes work. Um,
I usually get a summer job like detasseling or something. Which, if you guys are like from not from Central Illinois, you might be wondering what detasseling is. Detasseling is when you basically pull tassels out of corn when the corn is growing. So it's actually a pretty miserable job. You sit in like a basket on a tractor and just go through cornfields all day and get all like the water and the dew like all over your clothes. So it's like you're just like so covered in water and stuff. And then um, it's usually from like 5 in the morning till about noon. So it's pretty miserable, but the money is like okay for a teenager. So
but
that's
but theoretically, if you're doing that at 5 in the morning till noon, you're doing it before the heat of the day kicks in.
yeah, that's the point. I think because if the heat of the day kicks in, then they worry about heat strokes. So that's why they do it.
Oh, definitely. That's something you really do have to work, especially in Central Illinois, because I've been to that area. That area can get damn hot in the summer.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No kidding.
I feel your pain there. I just
Hey, how's the snow in your area?
the snow is a bitch. But
Is
it
it
got
like
me out of school.
about it?
But it did get me out of school 2 days this week. I was very happy about that.
Oh, really? I
Got me out
had
of
two
school.
days. I had 2 days around the beginning of this semester, but I haven't had any days off since.
Oh yeah, it got me out of school 2 days this week. I was pretty damn happy about that.
Nice.
I was pretty damn happy about.
There was
Uh,
a last year, like the stars aligned to give us like 10 days off because there was a tornado in a town near us that cut off the power for a few days, and then we had like after that in the winter we had some pretty bad snow, so we had like a few snow days, so we had to get act of God days to not go past June. So hopefully it doesn't happen again this year.
I think my school has used up all of our allotted snow days this year. So who knows? I really don't know. I was kind of hoping that we were gonna have a snow day I was kind of hoping we were gonna have more snow days this week, just because I was like, I really don't want to go back to school because it's like I had Monday off, then I had Tuesday off, and I was like, okay, I kind of really don't want to go to school on Wednesday, and we have school. I'm like, damn it, but whatever. Um, I guess school is important. Yeah, it is kind of important, except those classes that like literally mean nothing. I will never understand why I have to take like frickin' geology or whatever. Um,
Geology, that sounds boring.
Geology is the worst class you will ever take in your life.
I'm in I'm in a class that like actually is important, but it's so boring. It's consumer economics, and like everyone in my school hates it.
Yeah, but see, that actually teaches you shit you're gonna use in life.
Yeah, but it's just like it's so boring. Like he's like, okay, kids, copy these, go through the book and copy the things you think are important, and then I'm going to show you the notes and you compare like what you copied down to what I have, and I'm like, oh, kill me now. This is horrible. And then in my school, it's like the first 2 years for the underclassmen, the class they hate is health. Like everyone hates health because it's just a joke. And then for the upperclassmen, it's consumer economics. So
Not even health teachers take health classes seriously.
my
Not
health
even
teacher is a football coach, so that's that tells you about it, I think.
my school's football coach is a calc teacher, so He's actually
Oh,
got some
really?
brains in. He's actually got some brains in him, and it's not
Yeah.
like it's AP Calc, So
Nice.
yeah, so that guy has some brains in him. Plus, he's won like how many state championships? I don't know, but he's won several awards, so he's got some brains in him. Um, I don't think anyone's here to like listen to us bitch about the educational system. We're
Yeah,
not,
probably.
we're not really bitching about the educational system. We're giving constructive criticism in very rude
Having a
ways.
conversation about our lives.
Yes, I don't think anyone's here to. I don't think
Hear
anyone's here
about
to
our
listen to
own
that.
lives, though.
I think they're here to listen to us talk about
Like the fact
Spider-Man.
that
Yeah, there's that thing right there. But I think they're here to listen to us talk about Spider-Man. So we should probably start doing that. Well, for those of you who don't know, Spider-Man's the guy with the spider on his chest. He normally wears a red and blue costume, though he has been known to switch those suits every now and again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just like pissing you off with bad comedy right now. So I guess we should we could tag a little bit of spider news right at the top of this show. There really hasn't been a lot of spider news coming out in the past 2 weeks. There have been a few I don't want to say insignificant stories, but it's just like they're more on the minute scale than anything else.
they're
Some
like
of
the
the,
stories we only cover because there's nothing bigger to cover.
I wouldn't say that. More like it's just
They're
again.
not like attention grabber. They're not attention grabbers. There's no like, holy crap, the Marvel Universe is rebooting. It's like, oh, this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's like it's not big news like we had last episode. I mean, we've got a few supplemental things to add to last week's
last episode was
to,
packed.
la- to last episode's news topics. We've got a few supplemental bits of information, but not that much. But as the first news topic we can cover today is J.K. Simmons, the actor who portrayed J. Jonah Jameson in the original Spider-Man trilogy. He recently appeared on the Howard Stern show. I think he was talking about that new movie he's in called Whiplash or something. Um,
And
it's
isn't he
got
up for an Academy Award for that?
he just won something.
Yeah.
He did just win something. I don't remember what it was, but he won something for this movie where he is actually like basically he's a conductor of music, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's the guy up on the podium with
Who does this? Yeah.
yeah
That was the funniest thing. We're both just like doing this.
yeah, except I know how to except like I was a drum major in marching band, so
You look like you know what you're doing. I don't.
I actually had to do this shit. I stood on a ladder for 15 weeks straight doing nothing but this, and I looked so stupid. And people would ask me, "Hey, how does it feel to be drum major?" I'm like, I'm really less self-conscious now because there's no way to do this without looking stupid. So looking stupid in public is not something I'm afraid of anymore.
Yeah.
So that is, if there's one benefit to it, it is that. And I'm sure like professional people will tell me that I'm doing that wrong. I don't actually do it like this when I'm on the ladder. It's like I do it like much better because I'm trying to keep it in the camera shot and I'm sitting down. But conducting while sitting down is actually really fun. I'm just gonna say that right now. J.K. Simmons, he portrayed J. Jonah Jameson in the original Spider-Man trilogy. He was on the Howard Stern show talking about some film he was in. And Howard Stern threw in something at the end of the interview talking about his role in Spider-Man, and he asked Simmons, is there a possibility that you're going to come back and play that role again? And J.K. Simmons, to quote him, said that he'd heard that was a possibility. So basically, it's hinting that wherever the Spider-Man films go, and that's going to be a topic as we move along here. Wherever the Spider-Man films go, J.K. Simmons could be a part of it. So I want to give some thoughts on J.K. Simmons possibly coming back as J. Jonah Jameson. Personally, for me, I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all. I mean, normally I'm not like for 90% of the time, I'm not cool with like actors bleeding over from different like franchises and universes. But the thing with J.K. Simmons is he is J. Jonah Jameson. There is no actor, there's nobody on this planet that could do that role better than he did. So I would be fully in support of J.K. Simmons coming back. as J. Jonah Jameson. I don't know about you, but I would fully support Simmons coming back to this.
Yeah, I think J.K. Simmons is one of those actors where he is so iconic. Iconic. I said that word. Iconic. I've been talking a lot today. I'm sorry, guys. He's just like really. He was J. Jonah Jameson for a lot of people, including myself, and I feel like. Oh, normally, I'm like you. I don't care for actors bleeding over. I mean, voice acting, I don't mind that much because that's different. But live action stuff, I don't care for like actors repeating their roles. Um, but I feel like J.K. Simmons was up there with like Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and maybe Christopher Reeve as Superman, as like one of those performances where I guess I'd throw Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man in there too, as like actors who they're so good that like it's hard to imagine anyone else playing that character. And I feel like Professor X, they got away with it by having a younger actor play a younger version of him. But I mean, I like. Can you think of anyone else playing Jameson? Like I can't think of any other actor. Like it would
I
just
mean,
be weird.
I've been going through my mind, and I've been trying to think of one that could outdo J.K. Simmons or even match him. Like not even outdo him, just match him. And I really can't think of anyone else.
I can't. I mean, and I think Simmons is such a good actor. Like, and I, I'm actually gonna look. Can you say something? I'm gonna look up J.K. Simmons and figure out what award he won.
I think it was like
Was it the Emmy? Not the, yeah, the Emmys. I
no
think he
the
won.
Emmys. No, the Emmys are for TV, dude.
Oh yeah, you're right. What the gold? He won. It was a Golden Globe, is what it was. I think.
Yeah, he won a Golden Globe for that. The movie Whiplash. It had Marley from Glee. Yeah, I throw a Glee reference in there. It had Marley from Glee. It has Miles Teller, who's going to be Mr. Fantastic in the new Fantastic Four reboot. Yeah. Well, let's just say it's really good. This is not a Fantastic Four podcast. I
Oh,
have.
you're.
I was going to say I have some opinions on the Fantastic Four reboot, but really I don't because I don't care. Um,
I
Fantastic
think
Four.
I think I'm gonna hold off judgment until I see it. I don't want to be a negative person and like write anything off before it comes out.
And to be
Because
to be honest, it's just like the idea of the Fantastic Four film is it's just like so weird, but it's really like that film really is Fantastic Four in name only. There is nothing else about that film really that even resembles the Fantastic Four in any way, really.
well, the
So
thing for me is that it's kind of. I think if I were more of a Fantastic Four fan, well, okay, one thing I'm just gonna. This isn't. I just like to briefly talk about that movie since we brought it up. Um, I think that people complaining about the black costumes, I feel like that's annoying because I don't know. I feel like the Fantastic Four, like I don't care about what they're wearing as much as like Spider-Man or something. Like I'm gonna make an X-Men reference, but in X-Men, there's some people who don't like those movies, and there's some people who like those movies. But I mean, even if like I don't think those movies are made on what like the X-Men aren't really wearing costumes that look like their comic book counterparts in those movies, but a lot of people still enjoy those movies for what they were, and I think because there weren't people complaining about the costumes, I think is unfair. But if I were a Fantastic Four fan, I'd probably be more angry about it. But it's being it's written by Simon Kinberg, who wrote X-Men Days of Future Past, and that was one of my favorite movies last summer. So hopefully, he's a good writer. And it's directed by Josh Trank, who directed Chronicle with Dane DeHaan. So that was also one of my favorite movies of all time, Chronicle. So like, and people have said that it's kind of a sequel to Chronicle, and like it's not actually a sequel, but like it explores some of the same themes as Chronicle did, but with like a bigger budget. So just as like a fan of like genre movies, I'm looking forward to it. But I understand why comic book people aren't excited for it. So
I mean, I think in earnest, both of us would be in support of J.K. Simmons coming back as J. Jonah Jameson in future movies.
absolutely, hopefully
All
this
right.
happens.
I mean,
Sorry,
there's really
sorry I went on the tirade about Fantastic Four there, man.
there's really not much to talk about with this story. I mean, J.K. Simmons hasn't officially confirmed it. he said it's a possibility. He's mentioned it, but I think we'd all be in support of Jameson being in another movie. So I think moving off of that, we have actually a little bit more stuff to talk about with the Raimi films. David Koepp, who was the screenwriter of the first Spider-Man movie, he was the head screenwriter of the first movie, and I think he did. I think he did do a bit of work on the second movie. I'm not sure about his involvement with the third. I don't think he had anything to do with that because I think that was written by Alvin Sargent and Sam Raimi, I think. But he was a head screenwriter on Spider-Man 1, and he discussed where he would take the franchise. He was talking a little bit about the franchise, where it was when he started it, and where he would take it now as it is. And he basically said that he would have three different types of Spider-Man movies. He would have one that would be the classic Spider-Man, that would be top of the line Studio Sam Raimi ones. Then he would have the quote-unquote Amazing Spider-Man ones, and they'd have a rougher, edgier, almost R-rated feel to them. And then basically it would be one's classic, one's a little bit edgier, and then one is just kind of, I guess, younger. I kind of it's kind of weird how to take this other one, but
I think I think he kind of poorly worded his statement in a few ways. Like I think I don't know if he made his point exactly clear.
But basically, he says that he would have it be Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. One's classic, one's edgy, and one's basically they could. Basically, all three have different feels, kind of. It's a little bit of a weird quote, I think.
Yeah, it is. I don't think he worded it very well.
So it's an interesting kind of idea. Basically, he would have three, and it's kind of I couldn't understand if this was meant to be different films within a trilogy or different trilogies.
Yeah, I was confused on that as well, actually. And also, one thing that's weird about what he said was that he said that one like Amazing Spider-Man, quote unquote, is like the Sam Raimi for whole it's the movie that's accessible to kids as well as adults. And I feel like the problem is if you're going to have multiple any movie with the name Spider-Man is going to get people into the theater, even if maybe not as many now as there used to be. But I mean, people are going to come to see a Spider-Man movie, and I think little kids are probably going to see it. So I feel like his argument of aiming in a different generation or different audiences, I don't know if that'll work because I feel like no matter what quote unquote tone it has, I feel like people are going to see a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I mean, like you stick a Spider-Man mask on anyone, kids are going to watch that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just no doubt about it. I mean, kids are going to go to the theater to see Spider-Man. So I think it's an interesting quote that he has here. It's just he wants there to be kind of three separate movies for everybody, but I do kind of agree that that's almost kind of a moot point because it's like even if you do try to do that, parents are still going to take their kids to see it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obviously going to be meant to like appeal to different types of people who actually care about films, care about things like the tone of the film, stuff like that. People who notice that kind of stuff, but that's not really as much your target audience.
No, those big blockbusters are aiming for the largest common denominator,
and
the lowest common denominator, I guess, would be better.
It's not really your target audience as much because I mean, it's a movie for fans of Spider-Man, the kids, the teenagers, and obviously there are adults who go see it, but the adults admittedly are probably not not factored in as much. And really I don't think any adult fans deny that or are offended by that. They realize that okay, this is not made for us, but it is made so that we can still enjoy it.
Well, I think I don't know. I think that the Spider-Man, like in a perfect world, I think the movies are aimed at, they're aimed at obviously parents and their kids, and I think a fair amount of adults, would be interested in this. Like my dad isn't really a geek, but he would probably still see Spider-Man even if I wasn't into it. I mean,
Oh yes, I mean I'm not saying that Spider-Man isn't accessible to everybody. It's just I don't think the people who make the movies it's it's a hard thing to justify. It's a hard concept, I guess, to discuss. It's a hard thing to wrap your brain around because I mean, Spider-Man movies are accessible to all ages, but I mean, what are you making it for? First and foremost, the fans who love Spider-Man, the fans who want the general audience who wants to be entertained and wants to be thrilled. But who's going to go see this movie more than anybody? Kids. So it's an interesting barometer, I guess.
well, I'm gonna dissect what he said. He doesn't he say that like one would be like the R-rated Spider-Man, like really dark and edgy.
Yes.
Yeah, Spider-Man should never be R-rated in my opinion. Like there is no excuse for an R-rated Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man is not a dark thing at all. Like there are quote unquote edgy Spider-Man stories. Like we're going to talk about one that's a little bit darker and edgier later today. But there are dark stories, but it's not a dark thing. It's not Batman or the Daredevil. It's not a dark property, and I feel like that him saying that I think shows that maybe he doesn't understand the character that well if he thinks there's even potential for a dark Spider-Man.
And I mean, people were getting on the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man films because they took a quote unquote tougher, edgier feel. Well,
I think the first one really. I think the second one wasn't that at all.
Yeah, the second one I will admit was kind of a tone shift because it was like the first one was like kind of more. I hesitate to say dark, but it was like grittier, I guess. The second one that all went.
I'd say the best word is edgier.
Yeah, the second one that all went out the window, but.
Yeah, the second one, it was like almost like reading Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 and then reading like John Romita's Spider-Man. Maybe not that drastic, but kind of like that.
But I mean, it's an interesting idea, like three different types of Spider-Man, a classic, an edgier, and one that's I guess more. Is he trying to say that it's more like the Ultimate cartoon?
Nah, hope not. That'd be terrible.
Because I just kind of want to imagine like if they were to do that, it's like Andrew Garfield swinging around, and all of a sudden this like little chibi Spider-Man comes around. That'd be really like really interesting and really stupid actually. But
yeah, pretty stupid. Well, I mean, I don't think either of us are a fan of that cartoon, so I don't know anyone who's a fan of that cartoon actually.
I do, but I don't know them directly, but I've seen people who do like that cartoon. It's an interesting idea. An R-rated Spider-Man I don't think an R-rated Spider-Man would really work because, like you said, he's not that kind of a character. He's more of a bounced. He's kind of a. He's a brighter character than that. He's not the Dark Knight. He's Spider-Man. He is the guy who kissed Kirsten Dunst upside down in the rain.
Well, I mean, you can do darker things with it. Like you can do Kraven's Last Hunt or anything to do with Venom or Carnage. Like you can do a darker movie, but I don't think it would be R-rated because like Spider-Man isn't really. I mean, it's not. I think the way he said that implied that it would just be like a more cynical and like darker thing. And you can do dark elements, but I feel like at the end of the day, a Spider-Man movie should end with the good guys winning. So to say. Like I think this idea of like a dark, kind of morally ambiguous take on the whole franchise is just like a terrible idea. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
But David Koepp also went on to discuss how he is not he didn't say he's so much in support of what Sony's doing right now, but he says that he definitely develop other characters in the Spider-Man universe, and he says that that's what they're trying to do. And he's talking about how Black Cat definitely deserves her own movie. Here's the problem with the Black Cat movie, though. What do you think that's going to get? What do you think that's going to get compared to very quickly?
Silver Sable.
I'm gonna punch you in the face.
That was
No,
a
it's
joke.
gonna get compared to Catwoman, which Catwoman was a crap movie. I
That
don't
was
know if
a freaking terrible movie. God, no. That
I don't know a single person who likes the Catwoman movie. I don't.
that movie is a crime against humanity.
I don't know a single person who likes the Catwoman movie. So I think like maybe being associated with that would hurt it a bit. But also I just don't see how you can make a black I don't see how Black Cat can be her own movie. I'm like,
Well, what's ironic about it is that the what's the name of the actress who played Black Cat or not Black Cat, Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises? Wasn't it Anne Hathaway? Yeah, it was Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway was actually originally going to be play Catwoman or Black Cat in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, but she dropped out when that movie was axed.
yeah, she didn't drop out. They just axed the movie.
Yeah, they just axed the movie. So that's kind of a funny bit of trivia.
I don't think anyone would have been opposed to seeing Anne Hathaway as Black Cat, though. Just saying. Yeah, I just got in my little dirty reference. There you go. There you go.
That
Um,
wasn't really that dirty.
I know. But you know, there's going to be someone who thinks it is.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I just don't see how Black Cat really is like her own movie. I where do you go with that character in order to make it a full, thorough, complete story that she can run? You know, the
I don't.
point of giving her a solo movie, which she would run her own story. I mean, obviously she would have a supporting cast, but she has to run her own story, and I don't see how she can do that, really. I don't think there's enough there in order for her to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel like I don't know. Black Cat's like I think she's a cool like supporting character for Spider-Man, but I don't think she's a character that like reading about her. I'm not like immediately craving like to see her own solo series or anything. She's not a character that really interests me as her own character. I think she's fun because she it's interesting to see her like um, play off of Spider-Man and the Spider-Man characters. My favorite version of Black Cat is from the Spider-Man 2 video game for PS2. Um, I think that was a pretty good use of her character.
I mean, I love the Black Cat certainly, but I don't think that you can really ever do her as her own movie. I mean, I agree with you. Part of the appeal of Black Cat is the interaction between her and Spider-Man. That was what was so fun about the early stories with Black Cat in the '80s. And that's what's so fun about them continuously through the '90s into Marvel Knights. Not so much in the current books because I won't speak about what's going on there. But yeah,
There's
paging
some
Gary,
character assassination.
paging Gary Conway. Please fix it, Gary. Please fix it. Paging Gary Conway. Uh, paging Conway. Paging Conway. So I'd really, I mean, Felicity Jones as Black Cat, or she wasn't Black Cat in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but she was Felicia Hardy. Which, by the way, I will say that Felicity Jones and Dane DeHaan had such sexual chemistry in that movie. I don't know if I was like the only person who saw that, but I really felt like those two were about to jump each other at any second. I mean, it's like I don't bring that up to be like offensive or like or whatever. I just felt like those two had really strong chemistry, and I want to see those two interact more because I feel like that could turn into something that would be kind of awesome. Like
I could see what you're saying. They kind of had like a strange. I mean, I think it was kind of like an uncomfortable thing because I feel like the whole idea was that Harry, everything like about Harry in that movie was like an uncomfortable reflection of something that Peter had. So I always thought that like him and Felicia was kind of like a really weird, like creepy version of Peter and Gwen in a way.
it felt to me like Harry and Felicia. It was like you really don't want this to happen because of how weird and creepy Harry is, but at the same time the tension is so real. And it gets even worse in deleted scenes because the tension is even more prevalent when you
Yeah.
watch some of those deleted scenes. But I just feel like I just feel like that could be a really bad setup, like a really, well, not bad setup, bad as in like awesome setup for like a Green Goblin Black Cat team up. Um, that could be a movie I would go see. I could kind of go see that. Sony, take note. But
Like the only thing of these, just to the only like plan of these spin-offs that's interested me is at all is Sinister Six because I feel like that'd just be kind of fun to see villains. But I
yeah,
mean,
but with the
yeah.
Sinister Six film, they're talking about doing like Carnage is going to be the villain and Spider-Man's going to wear the black suit, but
I
then
don't
he's
see why you need that. That sounds terrible. Like, why don't you just have the movie works off of like the dynamic between the characters? Like, I feel like what they're. I mean, who knows if it's even going to happen? But like in theory, if they were like what they're probably planning for Sinister Six is not what I'm interested in. I'm just interested in the idea of like kind of like how you read Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Like it's just kind of a fun book or a fun story to have villains be the focus.
yeah, and then it's like they would bring Spider-Man in, he'd be wearing the black suit, but apparently he gets rid of the black suit because the villains ridicule him about it, and
Yeah,
I'm just like,
I read that. That made me like laugh. I thought it was really stupid.
yeah, I'm really hoping that whoever created that rumor was like was like legitimately lying, and that's completely false because that sounds awful. Um, but really, any other thoughts on this David Kep?
Yeah. I think David kept like. I don't think his script for Spider-Man, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but I think that what David Kep wrote the first one. But as far as I know, he actually like um, he he was credited as the screenwriter um, because of the I don't know if you know this, but like the laws of credit to screenwriters in Hollywood is like really crazy. So I don't think he actually like wrote the script that the movie was based on. I think he just wrote a draft, but because of like legal nonsense, he ended up getting credited. I think who actually wrote the draft that got used like into the movie that we know it was Alvin Sargent. I'm pretty sure I read that some like in multiple places that Alvin Sargent actually wrote the draft that was used for the shooting script, but that David Co-op just wrote like an earlier version that didn't really get used. The only thing, in fact, I even read somewhere, the only thing I think I read it on like IMDb or something, but the only thing
Oh, don't
that's
trust IMDb.
yeah, so take this, I read so take this with a tiny grain of salt, but like multiple places I've been have said this, so I mean I don't know, but I've read somewhere that like the only real contribution to David Co-op made or David Kep or however you say the guy's name, no offense to him if he's watching, which he's probably not, um, but the only contribution he made to that script was the Green Goblin being the villain. Like everything else, he just like he didn't really like. Aside from Green Goblin as the villain, there wasn't really much in his script that was actually used in the movie. So I think I don't even know like what his theoretical Spider-Man movie would have been like if he actually got to write it. Write it.
I mean, I don't know anything about that. I'm not even going to pretend to know anything about that, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. But overall, I think the idea of an R-rated Spider-Man really doesn't work, and I don't think the Black Cat movie works at all. So, David, I respect David Kep for his contributions to the Spider-Man films, but I
Yeah,
disagree with him on pretty much all fronts here. I honestly have to say that. All
I
right,
same.
all right, but moving away from the uh, David Kep stuff, we've got a little bit of news regarding Secret Wars. Basically, it's not too drastic of news, but I mean, it does feed into the Spider-Man parts of it with Renew Your Vows and stuff. Basically, all that's been confirmed is through Marvel.com and a map of Battle World. It has been confirmed that One More Day, the infamous One More Day story, aka the story that I think pretty much everyone agrees was awful, except for Joe Quesada. Um, I think Joe Quesada is literally the only fan of that story. Even J. Michael Straczynski hates it, and he
Yeah,
was he was the one who was forced to write it. Even he hates that story.
he wanted
Um,
his name taken off of it,
yes, he did want his name taken off of it,
and
and
I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. But so that story is going to tie heavily into the Spider-Man portion of Secret Wars. So it just furthers this Renew Your Vows speculation. about what exactly is going to happen here. Is it going to be the undoing of One More Day? Is it going to fix what happened in One More Day? I don't think there's any way to fix what happened in that. That damage is irreparable at this
Copy,
point.
every copy that exists.
Really, the damage done by One More Day is irreparable at this point. But is it going to fix what was done? I don't know. It's just it's all speculation at this point. I mean, we're really only bringing it up because really we do talk about news, and it is kind of our job to keep people informed. Like they need us to keep them informed, anyways. But it's just we've discussed Renew Your Vows at length on this show already. We don't know what it's going to be. We're just going to wait and see. If Peter and MJ get back together, great. If they get married with a kid, great. If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to take a flamethrower to the publication offices because really
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. It'd be horrible. It would be horrible. But the image of you with the flamethrower attacking Marvel is funny in my head.
you know there's going to be some miserable bastard on a message board who's going to threaten to do that.
Yeah.
There's going to be some. You know there's going to be someone who threatens to burn the Marvel offices, and it's like, okay, seriously, go on, get a life. And that's coming from someone who's sitting here on a Saturday night talking about Spider-Man. When I'm telling you to get a life, you should probably reevaluate things. But really, it's just like, at this point, I'm just like, about Renew Your Vows. I'm about Secret Wars. We know so little. We don't know what's going on with this yet. So take everything with a grain of salt, I guess, at this point. I mean, I think you agree with me on that. Just take everything with a grain of salt.
I mean, we talked about this ad nauseum the last 2 weeks, or the last 2 episodes, so I have nothing more to say. This doesn't change. I think as soon as they released that cover of Mary Peter standing next to Mary Jane with a little girl, and them both wearing wedding rings, and it said "Renew Your Vows," I think we all knew that One More Day was going to play a big role in this story. So this is not even. This is almost like this is not even news. Like I don't understand why they said this. Like I have nothing new to say.
All right, but something else. The final piece of news that we have to talk about this week is actually a fairly big thing in terms of the current workings of Sony Pictures Entertainment, which is Amy Pascal stepped down as co-chairman of Sony, the movie industry. And this is actually fairly big news because she was very involved and very vocal about the Spider-Man franchise. She said that she would never, ever, 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 ever let go of Spider-Man as long as she was there. She would never let go of control of it. She was the main proponent of Andrew Garfield staying on as Peter, and she was a very big proponent of the Sinister Six and spin-off stuff that's going on with the sequels currently. At least that's the official plan for it at this point because they haven't technically announced anything else. So really, this is a pretty big shakeup in terms of the Sony offices and the Sony workings. So I want to get your thoughts on what do you think of Amy Pascal stepping down? What do you think it means for the future of Spider-Man?
I don't think I know enough at this point. Like, this is exactly like Renew Your Vows. I mean, I have a little bit more to say, but I mean, we talked a lot. I don't know if the pilot that we did, the quote unquote pilot, where we basically spent like 5 hours talking about the Spider-Man movies. If you post that on the site or wherever that is, but it's out there somewhere. You can find it on AGR, which is James's website. And yes, I'm going to plug AGR for James since he's not here. So James, if you're listening to this, I just plugged AGR for you. You're welcome. You owe me something. I don't know. I'll figure out. I don't know. But anyway, I feel like I'm always like I don't like that with Spider-Man. These people who clearly don't really know anything about Spider-Man or care about it are in charge. It always makes me like kind of uncomfortable and a little bit nervous about it because these people aren't fans, so they don't care about making a good movie. They care about making money. So the fact that she was a huge proponent in Spider-Man, even though she probably had like no idea about what comics were or like anything about the comics or the character, I mean she's gone. So maybe I just want it to go back to Marvel at this point. Like, I think Andrew Garfield was really good as Peter Parker. Even though I'm not like a huge fan of either Amazing Spider-Man movie. I feel like I prefer the original trilogy, or at least the first two. I don't like the third one at all. Um, I still enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 2 for what it was, which was a mindless comic book movie. But I feel like it could have been so much more. So I want I want it to go back to Marvel. Like I feel like Kevin Feige and those guys, even if they don't maybe care as I mean they're businessmen too, so they probably want to make money, but at least they are being faithful to the characters, and I feel like there is some respect there. Where those leaked emails almost showed like an almost like as a fan like an almost disturbing lack of even any kind of respect for anything. They saw it purely as a um, IP to use to make money. They didn't see it as something that they wanted to honor. They saw it as an IP to make money. Where I feel like even if Marvel maybe probably cares more about making money than making good movies, and I know that they do, at least they showed respect. They show respect towards their characters. So I feel like going back to Marvel for me is the best option right now.
I say keep Spider-Man away from Marvel at all costs at this point.
Why?
I really do because and let me tell you why. One, Andrew Garfield is kicking a little too much ass for me to want him to go away that quickly and without resolving the story. And here's the main thing about it. I would support Spider-Man going back to Marvel if the story of the Amazing Films was finished. It clearly isn't. They clearly, at the end of 2, are setting more things up. Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield are setting more things up for future movies. I don't want Spider-Man going anywhere until that story is finished. And to be honest, do I trust Avi Arad and Matt Tolmach? Well, to be honest, I'm the opposite of you. I loved both Amazing Spider-Man movies. I thought they were pretty tremendously good movies. And I do think that, more than anything, I think Mark Webb really does understand the character. Even if the parent stuff is overemphasized, even if like that part's just a little weird, I really do think he knows who Spider-Man is. I really do think they know who Spider-Man is, who Spider-Man's supposed to be. I do believe that. And Andrew Garfield and Dane DeHaan and Sally Field and Martin Sheen and all of the cast of these movies. I would say Emma Stone, but Emma Stone's kind of out of it now. Yeah, I will admit that was a big mistake.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, year-old spoilers by now.
For me. Come on, man.
Yeah, year-old spoilers by now. But Emma Stone kind of threw her out. They kind of threw out one of the best things in that movie. But
they dropped her off a clock tower, so to speak.
They didn't drop her off a clock tower. They dropped her through a clock tower. Literally. But I loved both Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I really don't want Spider-Man going anywhere until those can be brought to a satisfying conclusion. And it's really like, I've heard some people say that, oh, Spider-Man should go back to Marvel because then he could be in the Avengers. I don't want Spider-Man in the Avengers.
I don't want him in the Avengers either. That's not why I want him to go back to Marvel. So I agree with you in this point. I don't care if he is in the Avengers or not.
I don't want Spider-Man in the Avengers because it's like whenever I look at times when Spider-Man has teamed up with other heroes. Let's take the 1980s Secret Wars for example. What did Spider-Man do in that besides change his clothes? Nothing. Well, okay.
He kicked all the X-Men's ass.
Well, okay, yes, he did kick the crap out of the X-Men. That was pretty awesome. But it's like, what was Spider-Man's main role in that?
To get the Venom costume.
To be the guy in the background who would crack off a random joke that wasn't even funny once or twice an issue. It was really all Spider-Man did in that besides change his clothes. I mean, it really was. And I keep seeing that trend whenever Spider-Man teams up with someone. I think back to I'll give an example in the 90s show. That in Carnage's episode when Spider-Man teamed up with Venom and Iron Man to go stop Carnage and Mordo.
Oh, by the way, that was a pretty bad. I think that was actually like one of my least favorite episodes of that series.
It was because you know what happens in that fight? Spider-Man is portrayed as completely useless in a fight.
Well, not only that, I feel like under Venom makes sense, but why did you need to bring Iron Man and Baron Mordo into a Carnage story? Like that was just weird. I don't
I
understand why.
I didn't understand using Mordo when Doctor Strange wasn't even in that episode.
Yeah,
It's
or
like
why do you even like why does Carnage need to be working for somebody else? Carnage, I feel like that's in character. I feel like just make Carnage a guy who runs around and stabs people. Like I don't see why. I mean, he couldn't have stabbed people in that show, but yeah.
it was. I mean, that episode has its problems, but I just like what's the big problem with that episode? Spider-Man is downplayed to such an extent. Let's look at Six Forgotten Warriors. Whenever Spider-Man has to fight along with six American warriors, he gets pwned by the Insidious Six.
Yeah.
He gets pwned by then, and the American warriors have to come in and save him. Let's think about let's think about all of Big Time basically. What happens in Big Time? Whenever Spider-Man has to squash a fly on his wall, he has to call in the Avengers to help him.
Yep.
It's just I don't like whenever.
I feel like sometimes I enjoy individual team ups. Like I don't know about you. Have you read any of the stuff with the White Tiger in the Spectacular Spider-Man?
Besides the fact that I have read that stuff, and I think it's more of an opposition to the White Tiger's character than anything else. I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, it's kind of dated, like, and maybe kind of insensitive, but I feel like it's still. I enjoyed that. Like, I think White Tiger was a pretty cool character in my opinion, and I enjoy his like, him and Spider-Man kind of being sort of like a semi, crime fighting duo for a while there. So I feel like one-on-one team ups, like where Spider-Man and like Daredevil or whatever. I mean, those I feel like are fun. I feel like it's when he's working with like Avengers and stuff that it doesn't work as well for me. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with me or not, but
I mean, I do agree. It's like I think back to times when he teams up with the Punisher. I think back to times where he teams up with Johnny Storm. I think back to the White Tiger stuff. I mean, that stuff can be good. I think back to Daredevil team ups. That stuff can be good. It's just I feel like whenever you put Spider-Man in a group setting with all of these heroes, he just becomes the guy in the background who cracks off bad jokes. And
or you get Amazing Spider-Man Annual #5, or was it 4? Whatever the one where he tries to be an Avenger. That was a terrible
that
story.
was number 3.
3, okay.
No,
Wow.
Number 5. Number 5 is the one where he goes to fight the Red Skull.
Where he kills the guy.
He doesn't kill. He doesn't actually kill that guy though. People say he killed that guy.
Basically, he does. It's like if he loaded the gun and pointed it in the guy's direction, and then had someone else shoot it. Like, I mean, it's not. I just think it's funny how like Stanley is just like, and then Spider-Man kills the guy.
But yes, okay, he leads the missile back to the finisher's car. It blows up, but then you see the finisher walking away or something. He is alive after they blow the car up. Then probably just with my luck, the next panel after they show that the finisher survived that, they'll show that the guy's shot dead. But I'm just going to ignore that right now because it doesn't support my argument. What was I even talking about? So yes, I don't really want Spider-Man with Marvel. I think Sony did too much of a kick-ass job on the first 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies. Now I
don't
will
think
say,
Sony did a good job. I think Mark Webb did a good job.
yeah, I was actually just about to say that I made a bit of an overstatement there. Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield did a kick-ass job on the first 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies. There has been a lot of speculation that Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield are both gone from that, and if that is the case, then just it's like if they're gonna try to just trash the whole thing, then I really would rather it go back to Marvel. I will be okay with it going back to Marvel once the Amazing Spider-Man film story is ended. I will be okay with it then. And if we get an announcement in the next 2 weeks that Webb and Garfield are coming back for a 3rd Amazing Spider-Man movie, and that's what they're focusing on, then I will do a little happy dance.
I think that's part of the reason I want to. I mean, I don't know anything, but like I'm 95% sure that both are gone already. Like, I mean, I'm pretty much certain that neither. Because I mean, I think Mark Webb, was kind of difficult to work with some of the executives. Like, I think he had some issues with them, so that probably didn't help his case that much. And then on top of that, I think the movie unfortunately didn't do that great. So I feel like he was probably axed, and I think Andrew Garfield was kind of the same way, and was, so I bet that they're both gone and have been gone for a while, and we just haven't heard an official statement about it.
But see, here's the thing, though. Amy Pascal actually came out and said that she was in full support of Andrew, that she loved Andrew. So I kind of don't believe that Andrew had any problems with the executives until he made that stupid quote that blamed the studio for ASM2's problems.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, I love Andrew Garfield. I think that guy's awesome. That guy, that guy, I respect the hell out of that guy. But that was not his finest hour. I'm going to admit that. That was not his finest hour. Andrew. I love you, but
I think he was right. I mean, I respect him for saying that he thinks, admitting flaws in the movie instead of pretending that it was good. Like saying, hey, this movie was flawed, and we did. It could have been better than it was. I mean, I respect him for saying his true opinion instead of just being, oh yeah, it was great.
He did say that he does feel proud of the movie, but he's like,
I think he said he still enjoyed watching it, and he still had a ton of fun making it. He just doesn't think it was as good as it could have been.
But he addressed the critics in a classy way. Okay, not so much in a classy way as in like he didn't bash the people who like caused the problems, because he didn't bash them, but basically it was like he just like said, oh yeah, it's the studio's fault pretty much. But he didn't like go all out and say like, oh, people who don't like this movie, well, you're just a bunch of haters, whatever, And I remember I saw an interview with him. It was actually before the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and I thought this was really classy of him to say, they asked him, what do you have to say to the people who are going to see the Amazing Spider-Man tonight? And he's like, well, if you like it, that's great. If you don't like it, tell us why, and we'll try to do a better job next time. I did actually see a video of that, and if I can find it, I'll try to post it. But I thought that was really classy.
Was that for the first one again, or the second one?
It was right. It was during one of the premieres of the first one. I thought that was pretty classy.
I think we've already talked a lot about the second movie and that pilot we did, but I think one problem with the second one was that maybe they listened to the criticisms a little bit too much. I feel like maybe the tone shift should have been a little bit smoother. I feel like there maybe could have been ways to make it a little bit less jarring. Like maybe, I don't know. I feel like it almost felt like the complete opposite tone of the first one. Like it was hard for me to buy that it was even the same, like universe at points. It was so drastically different.
All right, but we don't need to launch into a diatribe about AS.
Sorry, I've been going on like tirades a lot tonight. I don't know why. I'm probably more.
I think we both have.
Focused.
All right, but any final thoughts on Sony's Amy Pascal stepping down?
No.
All right, it's just I do hope that we get some news on what's going on with Spider-Man, with the movies.
I hope the next Spider-Man movie, whatever it may be, is good.
ASM3 right here. Let's Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield, Amazing Spider-Man 3. Give me that.
I just want whoever makes it to give me a reason to be excited about Spider-Man movies again. That's all I want to say.
That was depressing. All right. Now, let's hopefully move on to a less depressing note than that now. Wow, you've just dragged me so horribly down.
See, I'm not depressed about it because it's like every other franchise that I love is thriving. Like X-Men is doing really well. The Flash is doing really well. It's just like it's almost like someone's like, okay, so everything you love is doing great except for the thing you love the most. I'm just like, wow, it's weird because I'm not that depressed about like not being happy with Spider-Man right now. I don't know, it's weird.
All right, but let's move off the news topics and let's dig into our classic review of the week. For anyone who wasn't here last episode, we started digging into some classic issues because we felt that really we needed to do so in order to make this a full Spider-Man show, and plus we just like talking about these classic books.
And for me, it's a way to be positive because I feel like I complain a lot about stuff, so I can talk about stories I like from the past.
And there's actually we had for whatever reason there wasn't an issue of Amazing Spider-Man this week. I could have sworn that uh, 14 was supposed to come out this week, but it didn't. It actually comes out this coming week. So I guess we'll have an issue. We'll have an issue to review on our next episode. And then the way the release schedule looks, it actually looks like 2 episodes from now we'll have 2 issues to review. I don't know. That's just the way the release schedule is apparently looking right now. I don't know if this issue. I don't know if this coming week's issue just fell behind. Just like it ran late or something. I don't know what's going on with that, but looking at a little bit of a few classic issues, actually just one classic issue today. We're going to look at Amazing Spider-Man number 300. It was released in May 1988, and it was or published in May 1988, and it was meant as the special 25th anniversary issue. I have it collected here in the Amazing Spider-Man David Michelinie, Todd McFarlane omnibus. I don't actually own the single issue because really I ain't paying that. I'm not
the exact same thing right here, brother.
Yeah, yours is probably like in. I don't know if yours is in better condition than mine. I can't tell. I've had mine for a little over a year.
Me too.
I didn't keep that cover. I don't know why. I just didn't keep the dust cover. But you got Amazing Spider-Man number 300 in here. Would you like to do the synopsis, good sir?
Yes, I would.
All right, take us through Amazing Spider-Man number 300, written by David Michelinie, pencils by Todd McFarlane. Let me just give the credits real quick. Written by David Michelinie, art by Todd McFarlane, letters by Rick Parker, colors by Bob Sharon, edited by Jim Salicrop, and editor-in-chief Tom DeFalco. So take us through Amazing Spider-Man number 300, good sir.
Okay, so leading up to this issue, we kind of had an ongoing mystery of someone else having acquired the black costume that Peter Parker abandoned, and I think Web number 1, I think that was when he got rid of the black suit, and someone else had gotten their hands on the suit, so there was this kind of ongoing mystery in the Spider books of, well, someone's kind of stalking Peter Parker and wanting revenge on him, and we saw, I can't remember what issue, I think it was Spectacular or something, where like someone pushed Peter Parker in front of a bus. And
that was Web of Spider-Man number 18.
Oh, really? Okay. So that was and then earlier in Amazing, we see, I can't remember which issue, we see like Venom or someone wearing the black costume like in like an apartment looking at newspaper clippings of Spider-Man. So this has been, there have been like about a year's worth build up to this story. So the end of last issue, Amazing 299. Mary Jane had walked home and she had seen someone in the black costume in her apartment, and her and Peter's apartment, and she assumed it was Peter, but whoever was wearing the suit had a mouth and like a really creepy evil smile and was like, I'm home, and like a frightening, scary letters, because like the word balloon is melting, which indicates scary letters. I don't know. So that was my attempt at being funny, and it failed miserably. So the next one we see, this issue's called Venom. Mary Jane has been just like traumatized by Venom. He's gone. He's left. We see Peter come home. At first, Mary Jane thinks he's Venom, but he comforts her. We see Venom come back to his like apartment, and we see. I think it's kind of funny that like the big reveal is, holy crap, it's a guy we've never met before in the black costume. We see Venom, Venom's like plotting to get revenge on Spider-Man, and he's working out to because he's building his own body mass so he can, because the suit gives him strength, and then he wants his own strength will give him like the edge over Spider-Man. He thinks we kind of see a recap of the history of the black costume. Mary Jane is really traumatized by the whole thing, and she wants to move into a new apartment because that apartment's going to give her memories of being attacked by Venom. Now, was this, you might be able to remember this, was this the apartment that Peter had from Mrs. Muggins? Was he still living in that apartment?
This was the apartment that he had. I think he acquired this apartment in Amazing Spider-Man. It was in the early 140s. I think it was around the time of Danny Burkhart's run as Mysterio. It was in 1975. It It was around 1975 when he acquired this apartment. It
Yeah,
was
Mindworm.
no the Mindworm issue. He was bunking with Flash Thompson for a little
Oh
while.
yeah, you're right. You're right. But it was around that time. So
Yeah, I think it was just a few issues after. It was either the Grizzly two-parter or the Danny Burkhart Mysterio two-parter where he
those
where he,
issues all
where
blend
he moves
together.
in here.
It's been so long since I read them. Anyway, so so this is that apartment. Okay, so I didn't know that. So anyway, so Peter is kind of like, well, he gets he has the sonic. So I was confused by the sonic gun. He used that to get rid of the symbiote. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. So he has the sonic gun, obviously,
It's
and he's
established.
like,
It's established in the issue that he swung by Fantastic Four's headquarters and picked up the blaster on the way back to that apartment.
okay, yeah, that's
So
what I thought.
it's not like he just had it lying around. He actively went and got it.
Okay. Okay. So then I haven't read the issue. I didn't have time to reread it, so I read it twice. Like a few months ago. My memory is just slightly fuzzy, but I'm looking at it. So Peter, he's being stalked by Venom, who's Eddie Brock, and it kind of establishes that Eddie Brock, unlike almost every other Spider-Man villain we've seen thus far, is able to he's able to make himself invisible. My cat's trying to get in my room. He's able to make himself invisible to Spider-Man Spider Sense, and it kind of reminds me of that time in 339 where Norman Osborn used the gas to numb the Spider Sense. Kind of similar to that scene where he's stalking Peter. There's
That was an
weird,
issue. That was in issue 39, not 339.
I said 39. I think I stuttered. I said 3, and then I meant just 39, not 339. But there was a weird scene where Peter photo shoots Mary Jane getting undressed or something. I don't know. That was a weird. So then, basically, I'm just going. Venom kills a police officer because he's hiding out at a church, and he shows up at the party that Peter's throwing. Peter's moving in, so he has a moving in party. And Venom shows up to taunt him, and then Peter chases Venom away, and they have a fight. And Venom explains his origin, that he was God, get in here! Stop bugging me. Okay. Venom explains his origin, that he was a reporter who had when the Sin Eater was going on his killing spree. Eddie Brock was a reporter, and he had met a man claiming to be the Sin Eater, and he wrote a whole expose about it. But then it turned out Spider-Man captured the real Sin Eater, and it turned out that Eddie Brock had been writing about just some guy who was a compulsive liar. So Eddie Brock, he was fired, and his whole career was pretty much ruined, and he blamed Spider-Man, and he was going to commit suicide, but the symbiote found him and gave him Spider-Man's abilities before he was able to do that. So Eddie Brock said he was going to use, since he had Spider-Man's powers, he was going to go after Spider-Man and kill him. So I think that's one of the biggest problems with this whole issue is the motivation, I think, is a letdown. Anyway, so Eddie Brock, Venom fights Spider-Man and pretty much defeats him relatively easily. God, I can't talk today. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. So Venom traps Spider-Man in a web under a bell and is going to kill him. It's kind of poetic justice in the same bell tower where he got rid of the symbiote. But turns out Peter's able to break free of the webbing, and he takes advantage of the fact that Eddie Brock is a lot weaker because he used so much webbing to trap Spider-Man that his spider powers are really weak. So Spider-Man's able to defeat him, and basically uses no, he doesn't use the sonic gun, does he? No, he doesn't. He just takes Eddie Brock to the Fantastic Four's headquarters, and it ends on a give me a second here. People are yelling at me from downstairs. Mom.
All right then. So I guess I'm alone now. Basically, the end of the issue. The end of this issue is basically just a scene between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Mary Jane says that she can't handle the black costume anymore because of the memories that it will bring up with Venom. So she asks Peter to ditch the black suit, and Peter just and she gives Peter a kind of makeshift thrift shop costume that he acquired on his little trip to I don't remember where it was, but I think it was Berlin during the Spider-Man versus Wolverine miniseries.
That
So
was I think that was France, I think.
no, it was Berlin because that was where Ned Leeds was supposedly killed. Um, and so Spider-Man just redons his red and blue suit, and the final page says that the legend begins anew. So I'm gonna give my general thoughts on this
Oh,
issue.
by the way, I'm just going to apologize for my horrible breakdown. That was a disaster, and I'm sorry that I got interrupted near the end. So,
And
apologize.
basically, I think this issue is. I think it's a good enough issue. I don't think there are a lot of fatal plot problems with it. I do have problems with parts with I do have big problems with parts of it and certain characters in it. But I think overall it's a decent enough issue. Is it a good 300th issue? It's kind of a weird argument. It's like, is this a good milestone issue for Spider-Man? That's kind of a question for me. It's kind of something I've been debating with myself for a while now. Is it good enough to be number 300? I haven't decided yet. I'm kind of hoping that maybe this discussion will kind of sway me one way or the other on that, or help me decide. But I think it's a solid enough story. I'll grade it positively. But overall, it's a bit of it's an interesting one in terms of a landmark issue. Overall, I do think the story works for the most part. The stuff that happens in present day is interesting enough. But overall, I think Venom is a character, and I'll get into this a bit more. I have trouble. I have a bit of trouble with Venom in the comics, mainly because I find myself constantly comparing him to his adaptations in other media, such as the '90s show, the spectacular animated cartoon, Spider-Man 3, all that stuff. I find myself comparing him to those adaptations when I really think to myself, this is the original Venom. I really shouldn't compare him to anything else because those things didn't exist when this character was created. But I find myself kind of retroactively going back and doing that, and it's a big problem for me. But I think Venom as a character in this is a bit problematic, and I'll get into it more as we delve into the issue. I think Venom is the biggest con of the issue, but everything else I'm pretty okay with. So it's a bit of a mixture with me on this issue. I don't know how you feel about it, but for me it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think it's an entertaining story. I think it has good character. I think Peter and Mary Jane are really well written. I think that was a highlight of David Michelinie's run, was that he was just a really I think he got Spider-Man's character, even though his villains were kind of one-dimensional and interchangeable a lot of the time. I feel like he always knew how to write Peter and Mary Jane and their relationship, and Spider-Man's character was always well represented. The art is really good by Todd McFarlane. You can see Todd McFarlane really starting to take shape and establish his own unique form of storytelling. And even though I think McFarlane sometimes it gets too much, I feel like his artwork was really solid. And even though I don't think he was a good writer at all, he's like when he wrote Torment, that was a pretty bad story in my opinion. But I feel like his ASM, his art is really good. I agree with you that Venom is kind of poorly written. I think his motivation is really stupid and doesn't make any sense. And I think there's I think other writers have come along and made it work more in like later comics. And I'm gonna I'll do this later in the video, but I feel like other writers have been able to make his motivation work, but for this story it doesn't work very well. And I think you're right in saying that the character has worked a lot more in like other media. Like I think my favorite version of Venom is the Spectacular one, the one from the Spectacular cartoon, and I think the '90s show had a really interesting take as well. So I feel like those two versions of Venom are way more interesting and well done than the actual like original comic book version. So Venom's kind of he's cool looking and stuff, but I feel like his motivation is a letdown, and I feel like his whole like all this build up to this mysterious like bad guy who's been stalking Spider-Man and has his powers, and it turned out to be someone we've never met. And I don't know, like I think it was so shocking back in the '60s when they found out that the Green Goblin was Norman Osborn, because that was a character that people recognized. Where it's like, oh, it's the guy we never met before. Well, who cares? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know. I think that was a poor choice. I think Michelinie should have made Venom someone recognizable in my opinion.
I mean,
Uh,
that's a big problem for me. Is like we never get introduced to Eddie Brock before this issue, and yet Peter Parker knows his name. You know, the moment he sees his face, and it's like, oh, you've seen my picture in the Daily Globe. I'm like, okay, but Peter may have, but we don't. I mean, that doesn't work for the reader, and it brings about less dramatic effect when it's just this character that we've never met before. It's just, I mean, and in contrast to when Norman Osborn was barely in the books in the 60s
but we know it's Harry.
before, but hold on. Norman was barely in the books in the 60s, but we still knew who he was. We had an idea of who this character was and how much of a scumbag Norman Osborn was, really just based off of issue 37. This is Eddie Brock's first appearance in Spider-Man. We know nothing about this character. And it's just this awful, it really doesn't, I really don't think it just satisfies the mystery in a way that works. It really doesn't bring that to a good conclusion. And Venom's origin is a complete and utter mess because the motivation is just, I agree with you, the motivation is completely lacking. And again, I find it very hard to not retroactively say, well, in the 90s show, we had this, and this. Or in Spider-Man 3, we even had this. It's like we have all these other good versions of Venom that have come along. And yes, I'll say it. The man doesn't want you to hear this, but I loved Topher Grace's Venom. I'll say that right now. I loved Topher Grace's Eddie Brock and Venom. I thought he was pretty damn good in Spider-Man 3.
I agree, actually. I think he was I don't think the problem. I think people, I think Venom people like not because he's an interesting character. They just like him because he looks cool. And Topher Grace isn't like the huge buff guy. So people were like, oh, well, he's not buff enough for, whatever. But I feel like that movie, even though I don't think it entirely succeeded, it tried to make Eddie Brock like more interesting than the comic book one. So I don't know. I actually enjoyed his performance in that movie.
Making Eddie Brock more interesting than his comic book version in other media is not really that hard.
Well, and I want to say there's a mini series called Venom: Dark Origin, and it was written by what's the writer's name? It was written by the guy who wrote Carnage USA and Zeb Wells. It was written by Zeb Wells, and he wrote some really good stories in the early 2000s. He wrote The Most Dangerous Game, a Spider-Man story called The Most Dangerous Game, which is actually one of my favorite like comedic Spider-Man stories. But he wrote this comic called Dark Origin, and it's essentially like it goes from Eddie Brock's like childhood all the way to him becoming Venom. So the first half is like Eddie Brock's backstory, and then the second half is like an updated retelling of ASM 300. And I feel like that story is actually 10 times better than this because it takes like the things that are cool about this, but it makes Venom more interesting. And what that story did was it essentially established that Eddie Brock has always been a guy who's had bad things happen to him, but that he always gets out of it by like refusing to accept responsibility. So that story made his motivation make sense because it was like, well, Eddie Brock is just not going to accept responsibility for his actions. He's like the opposite of Peter Parker, you know what I mean? Like Peter Parker's all about being responsible and accepting when he makes a screw up. And that the whole point of that story was that Eddie Brock doesn't do that. And that story actually had like some really interesting parallels between the two characters. So I feel like that story, the Venom Dark Origin graphic novel, basically is like a superior retelling of this. So I'd say any fans who are listening to this, I'd say if you're a Venom fan, that's a must read. Venom Dark Origin by Cullen Bunn, or not Cullen Bunn, by Zeb Wells. So I'd recommend that.
I think Venom in this issue is just not. He's not interesting. He's just.
No. He looks cool, but that's about it.
I'll get on to McFarlane's art in a minute, but I really just didn't think Venom in this issue was interesting. He's just not an interesting character. And I will admit, I love Venom's design. I don't like the artwork of Todd McFarlane.
Really?
I don't. I I know I'm like unpopular opinion, but it just looks too. This is a bad word to use, but it looks too dirty to me. And I don't mean dirty as in like sexual or anything. I don't mean dirty as in sexual. I mean dirty as in like literally dirty.
I wodis say that I like McFarlane. I don't like him as much. Like, so there's some people who are like, yeah, McFarlane #1, you know. And no disrespect to those people. That's their opinion. And I think Tom McFarlane did good work on Spider-Man, but I prefer, like, I think I'm assuming you probably prefer like John Romita style art, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I prefer that. Like, my favorite Spider-Man artists are Sal Buscema, John Romita Sr., Sal Buscema, and Ross Andrew. You know, so obviously my style is like the more old school than
I just
Todd
I just
McFarlane.
I just prefer cleaner, simplified art, and I just feel like McFarlane's is too. It's just it doesn't work for me. I mean, I am a horrible judge of art. I don't know anything about artwork. I don't know what I'm talking about with this. I just know I know what I like and I know what I don't. I like John Romita Sr.'s art. I like Mark Bagley's art. I like Marcos Martin. I like his art. I don't like Todd McFarlane. I'm no disrespect to the guy, but I did not like the artwork in this issue. I really didn't. Um, but something that I want to bring up is a little bit more positively about this issue. I thought that I did think that really everything that didn't deal with Venom was actually really good. I loved the Peter Mary Jane banter in this issue. I don't know why I got a real kick out of like the moving scene where everyone's just moving stuff into the apartment, and it was just like the random banter between everyone unpacking boxes, dropping. You know, there's the two guys who see Candy, Randy, and Bambi, Peter's old neighbors from Mrs. Muggins' apartment. Those two guys like are looking at the girls and they run into each other. I thought that was funny. Um, I don't, Flash, wanting to lift the van back to the moving agency because he was like, "Oh man, I'm just getting pumped up. You mean we're done moving? I'm getting pumped. I was just getting started." So I like that moment, and I like the moment between Peter and Mary Jane where they're at the hotel and Peter's comforting her. I like that, but so it was like Venom didn't destroy the issue because everything around him I liked. I liked the marriage stuff. I liked the moving stuff, and I even though Venom was not an interesting character, I really did like the action sequences. Especially, like I just thought that every time Spider-Man and Venom fought, that was fun. I thought that there was a fun dynamic there, and I did actually like that the reason Venom was taken out was because Spider-Man used. I mean, he even says it in the issue. I have to call on my cunning because Venom can do everything I can and probably one up it. So I like the fact that he had to resort to his own strategic knowledge. So I did like that and how he used the fact that Venom's webbing is organic. I liked how he used that against him. I thought that was an interesting concept. So overall, I liked basically everything about the issue, but Venom. That Venom was the big the big deterrent for this issue for me.
Yeah, I think I would compare Venom to. People are going to probably like look at me like I'm a moron for saying this, but I would compare Venom to Gorilla Grodd in that Venom isn't like maybe. I mean, he's kind of like he looks really cool. He has cool powers. He's kind of hardcore. He's like really threatening. He's this crazy like really scary looking guy who's he's like really dangerous. And he's going to show up and really mess things up. But he's not like a super interesting character. But fans still love him because he looks cool and he poses a really interesting threat to Spider-Man. I think that's kind of the same with Gorilla Grodd. So I always think of those two as kind of being similar characters. I think for me, one minor like fanboy gripe that I have is that I feel like Venom is basically just, and I've been saying this for years, and no one listens to me, but I feel like Venom is essentially basic. Like Venom is like the Scorpion was like everything that Venom is, but just like less popular. But I feel like Spider-Man's like, oh my God, this guy has all my powers. What am I gonna do? And I'm like, well, Peter, you've already fought one person who also has all your powers, and that guy's name is the Scorpion. And I don't understand. And he is also was stronger than you, so I don't understand why. I mean, Venom has webbing, so I guess there may be that, but it always kind of was strange to me. Where I feel like fighting someone with his own powers shouldn't be that big of a shock to Peter. I don't know. I felt that was kind of strange, but people tend to forget that Scorpion has the same powers as Spider-Man.
Maybe because nobody cares about the Scorpion.
Yeah. I like the Scorpion a lot, though. He's one of those. You ever have like a C-list villain that you really like for some reason?
Shocker.
I'm a big exactly. Shocker fan. I like Scorpion and Shocker are like the two characters that I don't know why. I think they both are. I mean, do you think the Scorpion's an okay character?
He's a fine character. I just don't care about him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He's a character that I just kind of always latched onto. But anyway, and the moving in thing is fun because one of my teachers recently had to move. He moved into a new house with his family, so he asked me and a few of my fellow students to help him move, and it was actually really fun. It was a Saturday, and we all moved his stuff and had pizza and hung out. So moving is fun. So. And
you got an automatic A for the year, I'm assuming.
No.
I would have demanded an automatic A for the year. I moved your stuff around.
I joked about it, and he said that if I was going to do that, he didn't want me to help him, and said that I would. I said I'm not the kind of person that holds things against people. So.
All right, but any other like big thoughts on this issue? Like any other detailed things that you want to bring up?
I think I don't know. I don't like how McFarlane draws Mary Jane. I feel like Mary Jane should be really pretty, but I feel like the over sexualization of her is a little bit on the in your face. I prefer John Romita Jr.'s Mary Jane, where she's like a really hot chick, but she's not like a sex kitten.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem. That's a definite problem with this era. Is like the over sexualization of Mary Jane. But he's not the only person guilty of that. Like
it got back under control once Mark Bagley took over, but
it's more constrained. It's less. It gets gradually lessened, I think, but there's still over-sexualization of Mary Jane throughout a good period, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I do agree that once John Romita Jr. really managed to do it without over-sexualizing it, I think.
Yeah, well, and he was constrained by the Comics Code Authority and all the parental crap that they had to deal with. So I think sometimes constraints lead to creativity. So.
All right, but are we ready to grade this issue?
Yes.
All right, let's go. What's your grade on Amazing Spider-Man number 300?
I give it a B+, which is funny because I've reviewed 2 Spider-Man comics this week, one on the show and one on the website, and I gave both a B+. And I think they both have the same problem in that they both have kind of somewhat lackluster villains, at least in terms of character development. Because you don't know, I also reviewed Spider-Man Season 1 on the website, so I'm going to plug that article because it's my first ever written review, and I'm actually pretty proud of it. But I give it a B+. I enjoyed it. I think the Venom Dark Origin comic, which adapts this story and expands upon it, I think is much better. So I'd say if you're a Venom fan and you had to choose between 300 and Venom Dark Origin, I'd say go with Venom Dark Origin.
All right, I give the issue a B. I don't think it deserves anything higher, but I don't think it deserves anything lower. I give it a flat B. I have major problems with Venom's character, but everything around him, I really liked. I really liked the marriage stuff. I really liked the moving stuff. I just felt that was all fun. Is this issue really worthy of being the 300th special 25th anniversary issue? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, really the only reason it's probably worthy of anything is because it introduced Venom, and Venom is considered an A-list villain now. Because, I mean, when we think of the big 3 Spider-Man villains, who do we think of? Norman, Otto, and Venom. So, I mean, obviously, it's landmark one for being number 300, and two for introducing Venom like that. But overall, I think it's a decent enough issue. Not anything special, but it's a good issue. I'll give it a B. And that's really about it for this issue, and really that's about it for this episode. There's not really much more to talk about. So I guess we'll steal a segment from Angel Grove Radio. Yeah, James, I just plugged it again. Any shout outs you want to give before we wrap this up?
Me?
Yep.
I want to give a shout out to the Flash TV show for being awesome every week and giving me something to look forward to, and reminding me why I love superheroes so much. I want to give a shout out to the Flash podcast, which is another podcast that reviews that show every week, which is really entertaining. Andy B runs that, so shout out to those guys, and shout out to my mom who turned 50, I think, today, and she said she had a really good birthday, so good for her. So those are my shout outs.
All right, my shout outs for this episode. I gave a shout out to if anyone hasn't seen him, I want to give a shout out to this guy right now. Go on YouTube or go on iTunes, search Alex Goot, Goot, Goot. Look up that guy. That guy can play piano like nobody's business. That guy is I've only recently discovered him in the past few weeks, and he did this amazing cover of I'm assuming you're familiar with Every Time We Touch, but that electric Europop dance song.
No.
'Cause every time we touch, I get this feeling. Yeah, there you go. There's my singing for this episode. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people just. Yeah, people are gonna file lawsuits against me for assault on their eardrums now.
When you said duet at the beginning, I thought you meant metaphorically, not literally.
Well, I haven't heard you sing anything yet, so technically I'm doing a solo right now.
I'm gonna sing something. I'm gonna think about something.
He's probably gonna sing the Flash theme song.
There is a Flash theme song. It's just a title card.
That sucks. I like theme intros.
Yeah, me too. It should have the old show from the '90s that was also based on the Flash had an awesome theme song. So.
But go look up Alex Goot. Look that guy up. He did an amazing cover of Every Time We Touch, amazing cover of One Direction's Story of My Life, and an amazing cover of Clarity by Zed. His Clarity cover is actually a collaboration with two other guys, but it's just that guy can play piano like nobody's business, and that guy is amazing. Shout out to Pentatonics, the acapella group. They recently did the Daft Punk medley, which recently only took off. That was great. They've been doing a lot of good covers. They've been doing original music. They're an acapella group. They're absolutely fantastic. Shout out to James for. I want to give a shout out to Angel Grove Radio for not only for James, but for also they are getting right now their most popular episode is their review of this week's Power Rangers premiere. So I want to give a shout out to them and congratulations to them. Job well done, ladies and gentlemen. So overall, those are my shout outs for this week. So I guess I give a shout out to Marvel, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, all of them, because wasn't for them we wouldn't have Spider-Man. So
that shout out.
Yep. Any final words for the listeners before we sign off?
Take care, guys. Be safe with all the snow and the ice on the roads. So drive safe and stuff.
Yeah. Shout out to the snowstorm for giving me 2 snow days this week. Yeah, but also shout out to the snowstorm for making it impossible to drive. Oh my gosh, I hate driving in the winter. I really do. And shout out to the person shout out to all drivers who don't know how to look over their shoulder and see when someone's behind you and not back up. I literally got. I'm going to tell this story right now. I'm in a parking lot, and you have to be really cautious when you're in a parking lot at school. I'm in a parking lot. Literally, this jackass doesn't even bother to look behind him. He starts backing out, and I'm literally right behind him. I'm driving past. I'm literally right behind him. This jackass backs out and literally, if I'd gotten past him a nanosecond later, he would have hit me, and I was really pissed.
Wow.
So yeah, use your head when you're driving, people, please. But other
Don't
than that,
actually use your head. I think he means use your head and think while you're using your hands to drive.
yeah, use your head when you're driving. Use your brain, people. It's why we have it. The most powerful supercomputer in the universe, brain. And we all have one. That's mass production if I've ever seen it. So this has been episode 3 of Spider-Man's Tangled Web Show. If everything goes according to plan, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking about, if there's news, we'll be talking about news. We'll be talking about comics, and we'll be talking about Spider-Man first and foremost. So see you all later.
Later.